just asking about it.
Yes, and also coming back we can't have a meeting without controversy. I know. I know where you live. How are you?
Especially, yeah.
That should be your heads up, going down. Oh, you're going to do the rest for safe?
I'm gonna let people.
Okay.
Give me a low seat.
We're all required to try that seat out before we leave.
That's the,
How you doing,
the
kid?
new one?
Okay.
Oh, I need the phone book.
In accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, be advised that a notice of this meeting was made by posting on the bulletin board in Town Hall and forwarding to the officially designated newspapers that this meeting would take place at Town Hall at 7:30 p.m. tonight, Tuesday, June 5th. Would you all please stand to salute the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May I have a roll call, please?
Sure. Mr. Levy?
Present.
Ms. Lieberberg?
present.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Here.
Note that Ms. Thal-Eglow is absent, and Mayor Burstein.
I am here. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the first item on our agenda is, we have a proclamation for Down the Block. Do we have a representative of Down the Block here?
We do.
Hi.
Whereas Down the Block is a New Jersey nonprofit agency that provides short-term assistance to households facing unexpected financial setbacks. Whereas Down the Block's goal is to confidentially assist Millburn Township neighbors in need. Whereas Down the Block raises funds in order to pay for basic goods and services needed by applicants who have been deemed eligible. Whereas contributions collected from Millburn residents are used to help our Millburn shore house neighbors. Now therefore be resolved by the Township Committee of the Township of Millburn and the County of Essex, State of New Jersey, that June 2018 is Down the Block Month, and we urge all citizens to join in supporting the effort, programs, and services of Down the Block. Please visit www.downtheblock.org and come later to the Hills.
Mr. Penn, tonight, yeah.
Thank you very much. You might want to say something about your organization.
Thank you very much. Today we've been around 9 years. We have helped over 200 families in
Thank you.
I'm going to ask George, our county representative, to come on up and give his report.
Good evening. Plenty of outdoor activities for the summer. This Friday, there will be a free movie showing at Kipps Castle beginning at 7:30. The movie is Beauty and the Beast. There are also a number of wellness events in July that'll take place near here, near Millburn, at the Clipper Pavilion in South Mountain Reservation. Each night of the week throughout July, there'll be a different activity. They're all free. Mondays will be yoga. That starts at 6:30 p.m. Tuesday, there'll be music at the pavilion. Wednesdays, that'll take place, the Zoovies, which will take place on the parking deck at the zoo. They'll have free movies Wednesdays there. They begin at dusk. And lastly, on Thursdays, once again back at the Clipper Pavilion, there'll be arts and crafts. So there's a bunch of events going on nearby. Just want to let the mayor and town council know. And further information can be found on the website.
And what is that website?
EssexCountyNJ.org.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, how about reports from our committee and others? Mr. Holmesy, anything? You have anything?
No reports.
Ms. Lieberberg?
Yes, I just would like to say that the construction and the removal of the flex parking, the documentation for the bid has been finalized and will be available for pickup on Thursday, June 7th at 8:30 a.m. And the sealed bids will be opened and read on July 6th at Town Hall at 11 a.m. The Township Committee will be awarding the contract to the firm at the July 17th meeting, and construction will begin shortly thereafter with a completion date on or before August 30th. The bid process allows for companies to stipulate costs based upon a day-only or a night-only removal of the concrete, and all paving will take place in the evening hours. Penalties may apply if the construction is not completed by the August 30th deadline in the form of liquid damages. Contractor will not be allowed to disrupt both sides of the street simultaneously during construction, and we will evaluate parking on Millburn Avenue in that zone to optimize traffic flow and safety for all. Thank you.
Okay. You don't have any reports of anything committees you're on?
No additional reports.
Oh, okay. What about, are you on the Arboretum?
The Arboretum, Sam
Oh,
attended
Sam's going to? Okay.
Yes.
Well, I gave the last report on the Arboretum,
Right,
yes.
okay. I didn't know whether
There
there was
ha-
another meeting since then, no?
We've reported out every Arboretum committee meeting that there has been. There's another one in June, which I am attending, I think, right?
Yes, I believe,
I will-
June 14th.
I will report that out as well.
Thank you. Do you have any reports?
That we can also just mention that the farmer's market launched today.
I think the DMDA.
Okay.
Go ahead.
You can say-
Following up, the DMDA did launch its farmer's market with a lot of help from Committeewoman Lieberberg, who helped relaunch it in an afternoon program. So, although I'm the liaison, she did volunteer to get on, and I appreciate all the initiative. And it seems like it was well attended, even though there was some threatening rain. It was really nice. So hopefully people will get off the train and come. Hopefully, it's from 2 to 7. On Tuesdays, we'll see a lot of things, and that will draw some more people to our town. So that's nice. And the DMDA, which has had yet another change in leadership, I have to report the president, Cassie Fishkin of Casitas, stepped down after her short term. And David Sorkin, who was the vice president, was elected president. And Harry Roth, who was formerly a vice president, I'm probably president of the iStore in town, he stepped up as vice president. So we're seeing a lot of change, but luckily we're seeing a lot of people stepping up and volunteering, and Nancy Stone is the treasurer and has been very tight with our books and making sure that everybody is on task. So the first initiative was the farmer's market, and they gave out really nice bags. And if you didn't get a bag, go next week and get a bag. You basically sign up, either buy something or sign up, and this is our way of getting an idea of who's there. So that was the DMDA.
And what time is the market now?
The market's from 2 to 7 on Tuesdays. And just a little public announcement, the township does do weddings. I've done about 2 since the last meeting, one just a few minutes before, so if you're any lovebirds out there want to get married, you know, we could talk about it. The Kirsch's want to renew their vows.
We do, however, request that you make a donation to one of the charities based in town. Down the Block has been a recipient of some of our funds, as well as many of the other charities or not-for-profits, I should call them, in our town, such as the First Aid Squad and Opportunity Project and others as well.
True. Going back to the DMDA, and their next event will be Millburn Live, which will be basically an outside street party on June 15th. There'll be music. There's a lot of outdoor sidewalk sales as well on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays too in June.
What time is Millburn Live?
Millburn Live is live at 5.
5 to 8, I think, something like that.
Yes, I believe so.
And
The goodie bag of the DMV, you mentioned in the farmer's market, there's coupons and restaurants.
so, all right. I also had a meeting with the PTOC Traffic Committee, which is a joint committee of members of all different elementary schools and the high school, and we talk about safe routes to school. And what's really nice is that they're applying for grants for certain areas, including possibly the beautiful, not so beautiful bridge over Main Street. So our committee's been working hard on trying to make changes. So we just met yesterday, we meet monthly. Yesterday we had the business administrator as well as the superintendent, and it's nice to see the schools and the town working well together to have some joint goals. And that's all.
Thank you. Mr. Levy?
Yes, I have an announcement about a future announcement. There's something called the Joint Meeting of Essex and Union Counties, a strange name for a wastewater treatment facility. It has a capital, we are a member along with East Orange, Hillside, Maplewood, Newark, and other towns. It's essentially where our sewer system water goes. It has a capital improvement project. As a member of it, we are being asked by the executive director, all the members, to approve this capital improvement project, a vote that will take place in July. It occurred to the Township Committee that rather than having me report out the technical and infrastructure changes that the Joint Committee wants to implement, to bring them in instead. So next meeting, at approximately 9:00 p.m., the joint meeting will present to the public the capital improvement project that it plans and that will be voted upon, including the infrastructure changes. And I encourage anyone who may want to be heard or cares about this kind of thing to attend, listen to the presentation, and there'll be an opportunity to have questions presented as well too. So we'll defer that part of the joint meeting report until after the joint meeting presents to the Township Committee. Next meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Duncan?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to report back briefly on a topic that the Township Committee took up a few meetings ago, brought forward by the mayor. The business of the then pending legislation, which was before the state legislature, which would provide for the creation of charitable trusts to which donations could be made and potentially become deductible for federal tax purposes. Mr. McDonald circulated to you, I know, in his report this week, a notice of, by the IRS of their intention to do rulemaking. I was in touch last week with the legislative liaison at the Division of Local Government Services, who advises that they expect to have regulations by July 3rd. I asked if they were going to be doing a sample ordinance on a very technical topic, and they are, because there's going to be a need for uniformity among the municipalities that decide to take advantage of this opportunity, all of which, of course, depends on the federal side, whether the Internal Revenue Service rules that such deductions are allowable. But there is some movement on that, and I just wanted to let you know about that.
Thank you. Mr. McDonald?
Yes, just a few reports. One is that beginning next week, June 11th, the township will embark on a small pedestrian safety campaign. You may have been around in other towns and seen these flyers and posters that get hung up, just, giving general information to people about being a good pedestrian, being a good driver. We're going to do that around the downtown area and Upper Millburn Avenue, and sort of put out some various information regarding, pedestrian safety. As the weather's warming up and people are getting downtown, Millburn Live is going on. Just a good time to do that. Another sort of brief report. I understand that there is some confusion out there with regard to a project being done by New Jersey American Water on Old Short Hills Road. I just want to offer some background, some clarification to that if I can. Certainly, I understand that patience is running thin in the town with the amount of work that's been going on between Glen Avenue, Parsonage Hill, and things like that. Unfortunately, the water company is on a very aggressive endeavor to get ahead of Essex County's paving of Old Short Hills Road. The portion that they're going to be working on, more than likely starting tomorrow, is Essex County's portion. And Essex County has already slated that for paving, and will put a 5-year moratorium on that roadway once it's paved. New Jersey American Water wants to get in, fix their 8-inch main that runs down Old Short Hills Road from South Orange Avenue to Parsonage Hill. They will be doing it in phases. First phase will be between South Orange Avenue and Great Hills. Second phase will be between Great Hills and Parsonage Hill. Detours will be set in place by the police department for vehicular traffic, normal vehicular traffic. And we're going to have tight detours, tighter detours than maybe what other people have seen at this point in time. There is separate and aside information that does go out to emergency vehicles and to buses, and that is done with the police department, so that everybody is on the same page. We've done this before. Certainly the police department is well versed in closing down roads and being able to detour traffic safely. I understand again that the timing is probably not the best, but sometimes we are a little bit at the mercy of the county and the water company, and certainly understand the residents' frustration and all of that.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yeah.
So, I personally was reading a lot of emails last night on the Work Mom group, and there was a lot of communication confusion, and I think possibly because the schools announced that there would be busing issues, so people, on the school's message, it was maybe find your kids other rides if they live like where I do, off of South Orange Avenue or things like that. And that made people think, did the town ever post it? And so, just out of curiosity, and I did call Ken Taylor at New Jersey American Water, but he didn't return my call today, but what is the line from our standpoint, from communication? Because I think that, we want to at least know how we communicate, and if we could fix that on our end, how would we do better?
Well, and look, I will say that we communicated this last Wednesday via Facebook, Twitter, township website. The information that went out from the schools, again, was meant for the transportation department and meant for emergency vehicles. That being said, it was, I think, a little bit late in getting to the schools, and for that, I think we can do better in terms of communication.
We communicated to the schools?
The police department communicates to the Board of Ed and to the emergency, St. Barnabas, Monarch, any of the ambulances in the area, of what closures may affect their route. And so again, that probably could have been done a bit sooner, and so certainly something that needs to be looked at and addressed.
Okay.
Okay. I have a report from the Millburn Library. The book sale through the Friends was the best one they ever did, and thank you for supporting it. Buckles is back up and running, I think, at full strength. The 2 Edward Duffner paintings that are in the library, that when you come in, if you make a right, they're hanging up against the front wall, have been restored, and the Art Advisory Committee has arranged for the filming and photographing of the restoration and conservation process, and a documentary film will be coming out of this, which will have its screening at the library. The library has a pamphlet and has a ton of free streaming and electronic online databases and services, so that you can get a pamphlet at the library. That's probably available on its website as well. And on June 12th, next Tuesday, they have a Learn Something New program with the librarian Liz Miller-Booz, who will present she's going to do the program on library streaming programs, and that's at noon. The other thing I want to report is I spoke to the mayor of Springfield in connection with what I refer to as the Stop and Shop property, although it's not going to be a Stop and Shop, and he advised me that that has been referred to Springfield's planning board for an area in need of redevelopment study. So that's where it is right now. And I did tell him when I spoke to him that if and when something comes to one of their boards, and if Millburn has an ordinance in place that impacts that property, that we would like to have a joint hearing so that we don't have what we just had, the last 25-year debacle with respect to Stop and Shop. Okay. Now, I am very pleased to present an award to one of our students. So if you remember back in January, we announced that we were going to be taking part in something called the Lewis Bay II Future Municipal Leaders Scholarship Competition. 40 municipalities throughout the state submitted entries. We were lucky to have, this was the first time we participated in this competition, and we had 5 or 6 young people who submitted essays, and we submitted an essay to the League of Municipalities. This is coming from the New Jersey League of Municipalities. The contest, and we submitted those essays. We announced the contest in January. We received essays, I guess, in the beginning of March. Christine Gaddy, our township clerk, Jackie Lieberberg, committee woman, and I reviewed them, and we submitted one of the essays. And of the 40 municipalities that submitted, there were 3 winners through the state. And we have one of the winners. So I would like to present to our winner, Akanksha Chauhan? Chauhan, okay. First of all, congratulations, we're very proud of you.
Thank you so much.
And we want to note that Mr. Myron, principal of our high school, has come for this as well. And we are going to need a picture so you can submit it. You're in charge, okay.
Well, maybe Dr. Myron
Stop.
should be in your picture.
So, we have for you a certificate of participation. Thank you very much. And we have $1,000.
You wore a tie, come on.
From the League of Municipalities.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations so much.
Thank you.
Another feather in our cap. Is that right? Come, Julia, take our picture because this essay, among the other winners, as well as our picture, is going to be taken in the monthly magazine for the League of Municipalities in October.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's great.
Very exciting. Okay.
Finish that $1,000.
All right, the next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. On our consent agenda, we have the bills list, the refund of tax overpayments, authorizing us to enter into a cooperative pricing agreement and membership participation with the U.S. Communities Government Purchasing Alliance, waiving of the claimant's certification as allowable in certain circumstances based upon state law, request approval of items of revenue and appropriations, approval of fireworks display for the 4th of July committee, renewal of ABC liquor licenses for 2019, renewal of an ABC liquor license for 2018-19, a pocket license. I believe that's the mall, right? That's the mall, has a pocket license. Confirm appointment to the Environmental Commission, and confirm appointment to the Planning Board, and authorize contracts with certain approved state vendors and certain Morris County Cooperative Pricing Council vendors for contracting units, approval of sidewalk cafe licenses, and approval of raffle licenses. Does anybody have any questions or comments with respect to anything on the consent agenda? Anybody in the public have anything with respect to any of the items on the consent agenda? Hearing none, seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the resolutions listed on the consent agenda?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Levy?
Yes.
Ms. Lieberberg?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Dahl Eglo?
Absent.
And Mayor Burstein.
Yes. Okay, the next item is, we are going to establish an ad hoc committee to look at where we might move the Public Works Department. So it's called the Department of Public Works Facility Review Ad Hoc Committee. And we have prepared a resolution for that purpose. The ad hoc will be chaired by Jackie Lieberberg. Mr. Levy will be the other township committee person on the ad hoc committee. We have 4 members of the public who have offered their services, and we have a couple of other township employees who will be on that committee as well. Are there any questions or comments with respect to Resolution 18149? Hearing none, seeing none, may I have a motion to approve Resolution 18149?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
May I have a vote, please?
Mr. Levy?
Yes.
Ms. Lieberberg?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Dahl Eglo is absent. And Mayor Burstein.
Yes. Resolution 18150 is the creation of a litigation management steering committee to act in connection with certain pending litigation associated with affordable housing, and to appoint individuals to the steering committee positions identified for service on the said committee. So that committee is really for review of what's going on in litigation. I will be on that committee, and Committeewoman Diane Eglo will be on that committee, as well as our attorneys and our township administrator. Any questions pertaining to Resolution 18150? May I have a motion to approve Resolution 18150?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
May I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Levy?
Yes.
Ms. Lieberberg?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Dahl Eglo is absent. And Mayor Burstein.
Yes. We have a resolution, the liquor license transfer before the committee, which is dealt with in Resolution 18151. Authorizes the person-to-person transfer of the consumption license from the Westwood, Joe's American Bar and Grill, and, what was the other?
Paparazzi.
Paparazzi, thank you, to Taub Company, and it will be held as a pocket license at this time. Is there any member of the Township Committee that has any question, any comments or questions with respect to the proposed liquor license transfer? No. Is there any member of the public that has any comments on the liquor license transfer? No. May I have a motion to approve Resolution 18151?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
May I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Levy?
Yes.
Ms. Lieberberg?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Dahl Eglo is absent. And Mayor Burstein.
Yes. Okay. The next item on the agenda is the second reading in consideration of adoption of Ordinance 2502-18. Ms. Lieberberg.
Yes, I present for consideration an ordinance entitled number 2502-18, ordinance amending and supplementing Chapter 7 Traffic, Section 7-11.1, parking time limited on certain streets of the revised general ordinances of the Township of Millburn. Statement of purpose. The ordinance revision is to establish designated areas where vehicles can park for 15 minutes or less and allow for the enforcement of same. Tonight is the time set for the public hearing and final passage as advertised in accordance with law.
I declare the hearing open. Do we have any questions or comments on this ordinance from the committee?
No, I think it's timely and it's good addition to our parking flexibility.
Yeah, when I was in the Livingston Town Center the other day, I noticed how many 15-minute parking spots they have so people can go run in and pick something up and run out.
It's for grab and go and it's good and it'll encourage people to come in and not stay.
Do we have any questions or comments from the members of the public with respect to ordinance 2502-18? Hearing none, seeing none, okay. Sponsor?
I move that this public hearing be closed and the ordinance be adopted on final reading, and the township clerk be directed to publish the ordinance by title as passed on final reading in accordance with law.
May I have a second?
Second.
May I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Levy,
Yes.
Ms. Lieberberg,
Yes.
Mr. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Mayor Barsting.
Yes. I would like to present, this is a first reading, ordinance 2505-18. I'd like to present an ordinance entitled Township of Millburn, ordinance number 2505-18, ordinance amending Chapter 7 Traffic of the revised general ordinances of the Township of Millburn. This ordinance eliminates the requirement that cars must be parked head-end into a parking space and provides for and permits backing into a space and parking facing out. My opinion is it's just as safe to park backwards as it is forward and probably safer to come out. So, we've discussed this, I think, at the last meeting, and if there's any questions from anyone on the committee or comments from anyone on the committee? No? Any questions or comments from anyone in the public? I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with law in the item and for hearing and passage on Tuesday, July 17th, 2018. May I have a second?
Second.
May I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Levy,
Yes.
Ms. Lieberberg,
Yes.
Mr. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Mayor Barsting.
Yes. New business. The first item of new business is proposed time limit parking changes on Millburn Avenue. Mr. McDonald.
Yes, this is a revision to the ordinance that establishes time limits. In particular, we have run a bit of a pilot on the 500 block of Millburn Avenue and changing that on-street parking to 3 hours. It seems to have gone very well. In the merchants that I've spoken to, I have not received any complaints or really any other comments regarding it. I think that it's working out. This will also help clean up some of the discrepancies in the code book with regard to time limits and other things along the entire stretch of Millburn Avenue. It's clean that up.
Thank you. Any other new business?
Just following up on the parking, what other parking initiatives are on the horizon? Because I know there's been a lot of questions from residents that have talked to you. Have you had an ad hoc meeting, or is there one planned?
Yeah, there are two generally at this point in time. One is the trial of 3-hour parking in Lot 1 and Lot 2. This would be in response to, in particular, that our lots should be places where people go to stay a while and shop and enjoy the downtown, but also in response to those individuals looking to patronize the paper mill during matinees. We've had some difficulty in that the library lot has been used for matinees, which obviously takes away from those people who would like to use the library. The other initiative is to find in working with the parking ad hoc, which is Mayor Barsting and Committeewoman Lieberberg, finding a solution to deal with some part-time, employees of businesses. Situations that become a little bit more difficult for business owners in the downtown, and seeing if there's a way to address that. We have come up with a solution But in speaking to a local merchant, there may be some more finessing that needs to be done on that. So that's not quite there yet. But those are two of the other initiatives being
Because I
looked
know
at.
people asked about for summer, if there's summer people
That,
working.
that was part. Yeah, that was part of my discussion with that merchant. Yeah.
So will that be upcoming?
Yes.
And the other thing about having 3 hours in lot 1 and lot 2 with the paper mill is that so patrons can go to the paper mill and have lunch in town. So,
Right.
because we don't really have a place for that, for parking for anything over 2 hours then. The only other, any other new business?
I have something that I wanted to ask if Kit would consider as new business. I've gotten some emails, I saw that MMAC has asked us to come to something, their program they're doing on marijuana and its potential legalization. And I know that Chatham has gotten ahead of any law and proactively passed something. Now Woodcliff Lake is, and I was wondering from a Millburn standpoint, I know with 7-Eleven, we were a little, we don't want to, after then say we don't have, we can't now say we don't have 24-hour stores. But knowing that this might be something coming with legalization, we might want to consider whether or not Millburn wants to have any kind of law about,
Well,
about dispensaries.
Well, that's an interesting question. I was gonna actually bring up that subject in a little different light.
Okay.
I have been approached by, a tenant or an owner of a property in town, a large piece of property that's now gonna be empty, and asked if we would consider allowing the growing of marijuana, hydroponically. They wanna grow marijuana hydroponically, and I said I would certainly raise it with my committee. So that sort of goes hand in hand with how we want to address, listen, this is the future, guys, it's upon us. So that is something that we as a committee have to address and talk about, and I think that this is one of those topics that we'd really like to hear from our community about. I mean, I know how I feel about it, but, I'm not sure that that would be so well received by this community. And,
What would be relevant, which?
growing or selling.
Well, before you solicit community input, don't we have to first discern whether it's even constitutional to enact ordinances that prevent dispensaries when it's constitutionally legal in the state of New Jersey?
Well, I believe that New Jersey is going to allow
If it allows,
each
if it allows.
municipality. That's assuming that assuming that your law says your municipality can make that decision. That
Right,
each
but we don't know what the
municipality-
law we don't know what the law says. So we're seeking community input for something that we may or may not even have the ability to regulate with regard to dispensaries and growing and things like that. Point being that I wouldn't want to waste the community's time providing input on something that the input might be moot, given the language of whatever legislation comes out of Trenton on this.
Well, for that reason, that's why I wanted Kit. I just know myself off the top of my head of 2 municipalities, but if maybe we could just get an idea of what ordinances have come out and whether, they're facially valid, so that we could decide if that's something we want to consider.
As it happens, the state bar is going to be holding a legal update for municipal attorneys or frankly anybody else who wants to become acquainted with this topic, and I'll make sure that we have somebody there and get all the latest.
Terrific. I just think we should be more proactive
What's
Right.
permitted or
in
not.
general.
right, so
Sure.
we'll have marijuana on the brain.
When is that conference, Kit?
I don't know the date, but I think it's within the next month or so. They only generally put them out 4 to 6 weeks ahead of time. But I'll let you know.
Is it open to,
I'm sure it is, frankly.
Okay, you can
It
go.
is.
Yeah.
no, it may be worthwhile for, yeah, I agree.
New spin on community garden.
Sorry?
I said that's a new spin on a community garden.
My husband does have a plot at the community garden, but
There you go.
usually he grows peppers.
Some tomatoes, okay. Has everybody also done their online stormwater management training?
No.
Get it done, please. It's a requirement.
Sam, you've done it, right?
No.
I didn't know it was mandatory.
It's mandatory.
I thought it was suggested training.
It's not suggested training.
That was the other one.
That's the other one.
The other one, we saved
This one's
$250.
Right, the other one, if you do it, we save money.
Right.
But this one's mandatory.
What's the deadline for compliance?
July,
We'll have the clerk recirculate.
yeah,
And what's the penalty for non-compliance?
you get kicked off the township committee.
Save the letter.
So please try to do it. Or do it, I guess. All right. Any other items? Oh, I also saw, here's another one. Speaking of being proactive, I saw that there are towns also, so it's another question for you, that are banning sales of guns in their towns. Is that legal? Not that we
That's a
have a-
big question.
I'm not gonna
That's
be
constitutional.
talking. I'll figure that out for you.
Wait.
Can you speak louder?
A prohibition on gun sales by
Yeah.
a local ordinance?
Wait, but before Kit is tasked with doing this and spending township dollars on this research, this is like a proactive kind of opinion. I mean, is there a suggestion among the community, among the township committee, that we should be passing anti-gun legislation and ordinances in the
I don't
town?
even, we haven't even gotten there.
I know, but we're asking Kit to undertake research on this issue for something that may never be required.
It may never be, and it might be.
Well, I think discourse on the topic would be prudent before we task his law firm with considering the constitutionality of ordinance banning gun sales in this district.
All right. That's fine. Do you want to discourse? Do you want to discuss it?
I think I already did.
Oh, okay, fine. All right, any item of old business? No? All right. Public discussion, when invited to speak, please come up to lectern, state your name and address, speak into the podium, microphone, so your comments can be understood by all, properly recorded. If you are speaking from a written statement, prepared statement, please give a copy of it. Either email it to cgaddy@millburntwp.org or give it over to Jimmy Holmesy, please, to facilitate an orderly meeting. We're going to ask you to limit your comments to 3 minutes. And does anybody from the public have any comments?
Yes, thank you. Beatrix Shear, 101 Oakview Terrace. When you voted on the Builders Remedy Lawsuit Committee tonight, there wasn't any public discussion before that vote. So I would like to ask now if you've considered allowing a member of the public to be on that committee, and if not, how is the public to know what's going on? What's the plan for informing the public, especially the very interested neighbors of where this is going to, of the proposed project, of informing us what's going on in the litigation, and for that community and members of that community to have a role in influencing what's going to happen, or at least in making our views known.
Well, you certainly do make your views known, so don't worry about not making your views known. Now, we did consider it, and I will let our attorney respond to that question.
The committee that's been formed is a group of elected and otherwise public officials or consultants who are in an attorney-client privilege relationship with the attorneys who are handling the case. It is therefore restricted to people who are enjoying that privilege. It is based upon a model that's been used in a number of communities, including, strangely enough, in Morris Plains, Ed Buzak, who is the planning board attorney here. I'm the planning attorney there. The Board of Adjustment attorney here, Gail Frazier, is the borough attorney there. We have utilized this procedure for the last several years to have briefings and to have the members of that committee put in a position where they can make recommendations to the full township committee, but have the flexibility to meet more quickly and to respond to things that unfold in connection with litigation. So it is not a committee that's available for appointment of members of the general public. As far as how, I don't know, part two.
Well, let me stop you, or let me ask another question about part one. So you're saying it's a attorney-client privilege is the problem, that if there were a community member, then nothing that went on at that committee would be privileged? Is that what you're telling us?
Correct.
What is it that's secretive? What is it that can't be disclosed that's going on?
It's not secretive, it's the strategies that are intended to be employed, what defenses may be utilized, what briefing has been received, and what our analysis of it is, what we intend to file in response, litigation-related topics.
And if there was, and is there law that supports that a member of the community on this committee would destroy the attorney-client privilege?
Yes.
Of course there is.
Yes.
And do you have that law? Do you have any examples?
No, we're not actually going to have a whole discourse on this. This is a privileged committee. A member of the public, anyone outside a certain group of people would destroy that privilege. You would destroy that privilege amongst your group. If and when there are things to report to the public, we will report it to the public.
And
That's just how it's gonna go.
And so what is then, if you'll answer the second part of the question, then how will this be? If and when there are things that should be reported, they'll be reported, is a sort of unsatisfactory answer. So what will be the way? It'll just be up to the committee when we find out, for us to find out what's going on?
I don't, as in every other lawsuit in which the township has been engaged over the course of the years, when there are significant developments that are public, the public finds out about it. There's a motion that's decided, there's some kind of event which occurs in the court, then that is the kind of thing that can be discussed.
Everything is public, and all the pleadings are
Yes,
public.
yes.
You're certainly welcome to.
Yes, of course.
To see whatever's in the public.
So what about just having a representative who would come and provide information to the committee, or thought from the neighborhood to the committee, and then it would leave before you had your private discussion? What about that sort of a possibility? That wouldn't violate the attorney-client privilege.
You're always welcome to come to the public session here at meetings and make your views known.
But not to the,
Correct.
but not to the
We're-
committee.
right. This is not a negotiation.
I have a different idea.
Oh,
I asked
good.
Mr. Falcone whether this could be done. Informed residents, interested residents, could perhaps submit amicus curiae briefs to the court, right?
Of course
There's
they
nothing preventing them from
You
doing
can
that.
hire your own counsel.
Okay, so you get together, you hire a lawyer, you have whatever community money is, and you submit what are called amicus curiae briefs to the court. That way, you're not only just heard here, you're heard to the court. To the extent that you don't trust the township committee or its attorneys to adequately convey your views, you could submit that briefing to the court.
Yes.
It's done all the time.
Okay, well, I appreciate your consideration, and when we do come to the township committee to ask what's going on in the lawsuit, I assume that since there are people on the township committee who are on the litigation committee, you can tell us, correct?
No,
Well,
that's-
we will, so for instance, if there are pleadings filed, I'm sure we'll tell you if there are pleadings filed. If there are discussions that are privileged discussions within the confines of the committee, we are not going to discuss those privileged communications out here, because we're not interested in destroying the privilege in the first place. Otherwise, you'd be on the committee, right?
If you're planning, before a settlement is reached, what sort of notice will be given?
I have no clue when that's gonna happen.
Oh, no.
I mean, I really don't know.
No, but I mean, but
Before a settlement is reached, I am sure that there is going to be a fair amount of discussion as to what's going on. But since we're not anywhere near there,
Well,
I don't know. I mean, haven't been there yet, so.
If there's a settlement.
If there's a settlement, correct. We don't know that there's gonna be a settlement.
Well, just to let the committee know, which I'm sure you do know, we would like some notice before you're going to, before you decide to settle. So
We
that we
understand
can
that.
make ourselves heard either to the committee or through an amicus curiae brief or amicus curiae submissions or in
The
some
amicus
way.
brief wouldn't affect any settlement. It
Well,
affects
that's
the
true,
court
so you're only
proceedings.
talking about, that's true, so then, that's absolutely right,
We
yes.
understand your interest, we do. We understand your interest, we understand that you wanna be heard, we understand all that. But I can't tell you as I'm sitting here today what's gonna happen, you know, perhaps a year down the road. I have
No, of course not,
Right, so I can't respond to that at the moment.
okay.
Could I
Okay.
make one other thing clear, though, before you go away? I don't want you to go away with the wrong idea. It has long been the policy of this governing body not to respond to questions about litigation. If you were to want to come forward and make some point about, you know, the subject matter, that's fine. But in litigation, we speak with one voice in the courtroom to the judge. We really very strongly discourage outside of that venue conversations about various possibilities, or what do you think about this, or what do you think about that? Right, so that I didn't want you to leave thinking that you would be able to come to meetings and say, you know, ask questions of the members of the
Right.
township committee.
Right,
about the
I'm not
litigation.
really that familiar with amicus briefs in a trial court, usually on appeal, but you don't really find that too much in a.
I just wanna
Trial.
say, in
Okay.
response to your concern about us not hearing your concerns.
Yes.
One of the reasons we're in litigation now is because we've heard your concerns.
Well, yes, and we
I just-
very much appreciate
Okay,
that, that is
so-
true,
so
and
I
we very
just-
much appreciate that.
But, so we do hear what you're saying.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Good point.
Thank you.
Good evening, Dave Cosgrove, 99 Oakview Terrace. A few comments, particularly on the public member of the committee. I had asked at the last meeting, I had volunteered to be on the committee and was told instantly no.
Correct.
And Mr. Falcone, I'm gonna, if you don't mind, I'll give you a call tomorrow. There is case law.
No.
There is case law that says I have a common interest and it does not waive the privilege. So maybe you'll look that up, because I think you're wrong, respectfully.
You know, I'm not.
You know, on the privilege issue.
Advancing a legal argument. The committee has decided, based upon the way it's been done elsewhere, and our recommendation here, that this committee be composed in a certain way, and that's the way they're proceeding to go forward with it, and have done so tonight through the adoption of this resolution.
Right.
That's
We've
not what we
adopted-
were told, though. We were told it was based on your advice that they would waive the attorney-client privilege. But
Yeah, but you're gonna find the common interest applies to parties. You're not a party to the case.
there's case law that talks about parties who are not even parties to the case, who just have a common interest.
We're really not.
In New
really-
Jersey, it's a
Mr.
Supreme Court
Cosgrove,
case.
Mr. Cosgrove, we're not debating this. We've passed the resolution, and the committee is going to remain in the form that it's been established.
At what point will you be reporting out to us the position, for instance, of the adversary in the case? That's certainly not privileged.
Well,
You can see the position of the adversaries through the papers that they file. We do not come to this meeting to characterize or brief you on what our adversaries in these cases are doing.
Could we get a report now on what the status is?
papers have been filed.
Excuse me?
Right? The complaint's been filed.
Nothing since.
That's it, just the
my last
complaint file?
report.
There's been an answer file, too.
I don't think
There
so.
isn't?
But
Well, I don't
Okay.
think 35 days has passed, has it? I don't even know.
if there's one in process, it hasn't come across my desk yet.
Okay. Thank you.
Hello, Marilee Reesbeck, 91 Whittingham Terrace, Millburn. I'd just like to remind everybody that this Sunday is the Spring Festival in Taylor Park. It's sponsored jointly by the South Mountain Civic Association and the Indian American Association of Millburn Short Hills. There'll be food vendors and cricket demonstrations, dancing demonstrations, etc.
What
1 to
time?
4.
From 1 to 4?
1 to 4, Taylor Park. Looked like it was going to rain, but the weather looks like it's
And this
clearing.
is the second rain out, right?
No, the
So
rain date was,
reset.
the original date was May 20th, so this is the first rain date, and there's no subsequent rain date. So if it rains, we'll be in the Bauer Center. But it looks like the weather's clearing, so hope to see you all there.
Sunday, right?
Sunday, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anyone else?
Phil Kirsch, 93 Cedar Street. I'm glad the mayor brought up the question of gun sales because it had been on my mind when the whole question came up a couple of years ago about a company that was going to use radioactive materials in production on Willow Street. One of the problems that the citizens ran into was, I guess, that there was no ordinance against that. So it became simply, I think, a zoning issue, and there was really not much of a way to prevent it, just investigate and go along with it. So at that time, and then again lately, I thought, well, what if somebody wants to open a gun shop in town? And I think it's something that I certainly, personally, would not want to be caught in that position, the same kind of position where there's no ordinance against it if that were possible. In other words, we'd just be open, we just go along thinking, well, nobody's going to want to do that. They're not going to want to open a gun shop or a adult bookstore or stuff like that in Millburn Township. But really, as far as guns go, I think that's something that should be looked into. I think it's something that, again, I think there is a town that's looking at an ordinance now in New Jersey. And I think it's something, my first question was, what's the status right now? And I guess, perhaps Mr. Falcon or someone in the town can answer that. The question is, what's the status right now? If I wanted to open a gun shop in Millburn, is there anything that would stop me as a legitimate business? If I have the licenses from the state, can I do it? If I want to sell guns out of my home, which is being done in many places around the state, and I have all the licenses and everything I need, can I do that? The third thing is, if I want to buy a gun, and I'm approved to buy a gun and keep it in my home, does anybody get notified? The way they do if I want to put a dormer on my house, the way they do if I want to change something in a historic district, if I want to own a firearm. Is there anything in place, that my neighbors would know about that? And I have those questions. I'd like to get an answer to those questions. And then there's a separate question of, do we want to have a discourse? Do we want to pursue anything about it? If we don't have anything in place, do we want to pursue that? I'd certainly want to have a notification if somebody within a certain distance from me, was going to apply to own a firearm, or if they got a firearm. So my question is really about the status, and I don't expect an answer right now, but I would expect it to be looked into for an answer in the near future.
We can do that.
If I may speak, I think that hearing Mr. Kirsch, it should be sort of a list of what we don't want. Whether it's adult bookstores, whether it's
Well, I think-
marijuana shops,
Already
whether
an
it's
adult
gun shops.
bookstore one, I think, isn't there?
Sorry?
I think there's already an ordinance on adult
I
bookstores.
don't know, but if, to the extent that,
Well, we should see what we have first. That's
Yeah.
the first question. What do
so
we
that is a
have?
good question, is what do we not, because we should be
Proactive.
proactive.
Yeah, the question, what do we have, and then there's a question beyond that, if we want to do something, what can we do? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Mazur.
Could be part of the master plan.
Ed Mazer, Greenwood Drive. I'd like to compliment you on setting up a litigation steering committee. Most corporations have this to rein in and regulate which legal actions they take offensively. I think with this litigation steering committee, you also should be looking at what your outside legal spend is. I look at that, and it's been averaging well over $1 million a year, which most people are not aware of. You've spent probably $2.5 million over the last 4 or 5 years in arbitration with your insurance company, and I would suggest several of those actions are actions which the Township Committee, with better management, should never have gotten into in the first place.
The thing is, a lot is winding down now, so.
Well, but it's been going, and I know when I was overseeing litigation, I'd be questioning things, questioning what appears to be double billing and things which I'm not sure is being done. I see the bills submitted and the bills being paid, and nothing being done as far as looking at whether the time is appropriate for what was done, whether the people who are doing the work, whether double, triple teaming, sometimes 4 attorneys in court at the same time. Certainly with the corporation, you would not have that. And I think with this litigation steering committee, and particularly since you have a number of attorneys on this board, as well as the ones that you're going to appoint, that you should be looking into more closely regulating your legal actions and your legal spend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's something we are doing.
I think that's a really good point, especially in light of people being more concerned about their tax dollars and things like that. That's something that we personally can control.
Well, actually, Sam and I are on the finance committee, and one of our tasks now is reviewing bills, attorney's bills. So we have proactively begun to do that, and we are looking at issues such as bad carriers going to court and things like that. So yes, we are aware of it, and we are looking at it with a sharper pencil. But thank you. Anything else? Come on up.
Janet Pizar, Main Street. I have 2 issues. The second one is the relocation of the Department of Public Works. So if it slips my mind, please remind me at the end of this.
Only if you have time left. Go ahead.
Okay, so Madam Mayor, do you think you can bear this one more time?
No.
No?
It's you're at the microphone.
Okay. It's about flex parking. And I want to mention that a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, Matthew Coddish wrote in an article that the flex parking was unfamiliar. And I think that was very accurate. I think we're still in transition from the entire structure of complete streets, including flex parking. And what seems to be the case is that there's no objectivity. We have nothing to measure why it should be relocated, it should be removed. For example, it's not flawed, it's very functional, and it's purely subjective. This is about personal preference. This is about people making a lot of noise because they want it the way it was. So the question is, how do you justify the fiduciary responsibility that you have not to squander, not to waste taxpayer money, all on the basis of preference? Now, my suggestion was to Madam Mayor that it's too soon, it's premature, and we have to get some objective facts. For example, revenue from the parking that's been generated. Is it much lower than it was pre-flexible parking? Are people really not coming into the downtown because they're adverse to flexible parking? That would be something objective to look at. Now, taxpayer money is going to be wasted because it's about preference. So it's not a rhetorical question. I need to hear from the people who supported the removal of flex parking, how you can justify this.
Wait, so I want to just understand, you're suggesting that it's not wise
Needed.
to spend $500,000 on 23 parking spots. Is that what you're telling me?
Absolutely.
Okay, I was just
I'm
wanting
saying
to
it's
make sure I
premature to
understood.
even think
I
about
just
it.
want to make sure I understood what you were saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, well.
So how do you justify spending more taxpayer money?
Well, I'll respond. I think it's premature for the question because the only thing we authorized was to look at the spend that it's going to cost. No one's authorized the actual removal of flex parking.
Yes,
So,
but Mr. Falcon said once you solicit for bids,
Mr. Falcon, if you were at, I guess you were at that because I also remarked that it's in the language of the statute that you're not committed. There's a list of 5
We can abandon the project.
or 6 ways, in which, one of which is that essentially the township committee elects not to go forward with the project.
okay.
And so I think I find it personally premature to challenge or
Okay,
query
I'll say it again.
township committee members
I'll come
about
back.
why they're removing
Okay. I'll come back and say it again.
apartments.
Thank you, thank you. Second thing, the relocation of the Department of Public Works. Down at the very, very end of Main Street, there is an old house on the market,
Okay.
on the edge of town.
If you would like to make your suggestion, we have created the committee tonight. You're
Mhm.
welcome to send him an email.
Okay,
Send it to Ms. Lieberberg. How's
okay,
that?
very good, very
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Going once, going twice? May I have a up? Up. You just made it.
Hi, everyone. My name's Alex Moba, 17 Reeve Circle. Came here tonight regarding the Millburn Environmental Commission, so thank you to the committee
This is
for
our new member,
for that
our newest
appointment.
member.
Was not expecting to make a comment on the legalization of marijuana, but since it came up by the committee, it is an issue that I have studied for several years. So I just wanted to offer a quick comment.
Maybe we should have the Environmental Commission give us.
Wait, can let him make his comment.
I just want, in terms of preemptively changing the local laws, I would just issue a word of caution. The state laws in this space are changing rapidly. Could be happening by the end of this month, more than likely by the end of the year. So I would just caution this committee to not do anything rash on this one, to create even more confusion than there may already be between the federal and state law. I would say think about it from the perspective of 5 or 10 years in the future, when the laws have changed, when perhaps attitudes and norms have really shifted on this issue, and it might be like, for example, banning a liquor store in town a year before the end of Prohibition. Or banning a winery in town. And then I would also say, think of the medical uses. The state has recently expanded the medical marijuana program, adding a wide range of qualifying conditions. So I would just say by preemptively banning that, you would be restricting certain patients from having ready access to what the state now considers medicine for a broad range of conditions. So I just wanted to throw that perspective out there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? May I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
May I have a second? Second. We are adjourned.
Gun use, marijuana. How about abortion facilities?
No, I
Should
think we
we
should have them.
talk about